No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of Friday Night Smackdown for April 26th, 2024. Now, this was night one results of the 2024 WWE Draft. Only part of the roster was eligible to be drafted on this show. We kicked off with Paul Heyman being interviewed backstage. Heyman revealed that Roman Reigns has withdrawn from eligibility for the draft. The reason is that because Reigns has carried the company through the pandemic, and since he's the biggest star, and since he's not returning for the immediate future, he figured, why take the first draft spot and let somebody else have it? That's his attitude. So he's not part of it. He's not there. And then this did have a further development, which we'll get to in just a few moments. I mean, whatever. It's like Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar was in the same scenario where he became a part-timer and he essentially showed up when he wanted to on whatever brand he felt like. Same thing here with Roman Reigns. Doesn't seem like he's coming back anytime soon. We also had footage from the Performance Center where they had the entire roster sitting out there to watch the show and see if anybody got called up to the main roster. Then we kicked off with a contract signing for Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles at Backlash in France. Anybody who's followed the No DQ channel for a while knows that I'm not a fan of these types of segments, these contract signings. One of my least favorite types of segments. So AJ Styles cut a promo, said they both had to prove themselves outside of WWE. Styles said that he respects Cody Rhodes and talked about how Cody's dad, Dusty Rhodes, gave both of them advice over the years, said that Cody's a good man, and we'll find out if Cody can carry the weight of being the champion at Backlash. Styles then signed the contract, and then Cody responded by saying Styles is the modern excellence of execution, but no matter how phenomenal Styles is, it's not a dream match for Cody. It's must win. Cody then signed the contract, went for a handshake. Styles said it's a shame Cody's title reign will end at Backlash. Styles shook his hand and then left. Cody started to leave, but then Triple H showed up, and Triple H wanted Cody to stay for the first round of draft picks. All right, so Matthew said this was one of the better contract signings, and I disagree. I think it was boring. Like, it was just a promo segment. Why even bother doing a contract signing? It's just them face-to-face in the ring, and it wasn't even that captivating, in my opinion. Like, it did not do anything to get me more excited for this match or even be able to suspend disbelief and think maybe AJ Styles can win the title. It did nothing for me. So it gets a thumbs down for me. It was boring. And guess what? Next week, they're doing a face-to-face, which is basically what this was. Weak. Just my opinion, not a fan. It's filler. We had Triple H and Cody Rhodes read off the picks. So the first pick of the 2024 WWE Draft, now keep in mind the champions were not eligible. The champions stay on their brand. Bianca Belair is the first draft pick going over to SmackDown. The first pick for Monday Night Raw was Jey Uso. And then SmackDown picked Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes picked at the very top here when it comes to the draft picks and the options in this pool. Seth Rollins was then drafted to Monday Night Raw, and that concluded the first round. Not sure why Raw picked Jey Uso over Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is multi-time world champion, main event of WrestleMania. You pick Jey Uso over him? Okay. Carmelo, he's a rising star, I guess. That makes sense. Whatever. Bianca, she's one of the top female stars. So, all right. I guess that's fine. But no real surprises here. I mean, Carmelo was pretty much on the main roster already, so it wasn't like it was a huge shocker. Oh my God, Carmelo Hayes has been called up to the main roster. None of that. Carmelo came out there, said he's going to shoot his shot, and he challenged Cody Rhodes to a match, and Cody Rhodes agreed and shook Carmelo's hand. So there you go. Main event was set up. Carmelo Hayes versus Cody Rhodes in the main event on SmackDown. We had a tag team match. Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee versus Angel and Humberto of the LWO. This was a very basic match. I mean, there was literally nothing to it. Like, they started to wrestle and we quickly went to a commercial break, and then when we came back from the commercial break, it was already hot tag time. Rey Mysterio came in, hit the code red on Angel. Humberto broke up the pin, and then Rey Mysterio threw Berto out of the ring, took out Angel with the 619. Dragon Lee tagged back in and pinned Angel with the Project Dragon. Very short match here. And we had an angle afterwards. Santos Escobar came out there with Legado del Fantasma, said he is many things, but he is not a liar. He said he did not attack Dragon Lee. And then he revealed that Elektra Lopez secured footage from the night that Dragon Lee was attacked. And as it turns out, surprise, surprise, it was Carlito who attacked Dragon Lee. Carlito then shoved Dragon Lee into Rey Mysterio, took out Lee with the backstabber, and fled the ring. No real surprise here. We all pretty much knew Carlito was going to be the mastermind behind that attack. Carlito turns heel, and if you're the praying type, can we all pray that there will not be that Death Rebel music for Carlito moving forward? Maybe he can go back to his old music. Please. That would be nice. His music needs to go if he's going to even be around. We had Bron Breakker coming out for a match with Cedric Alexander, who still has a job, and he did the job very quickly here. The match went like 20 seconds. Bron Breakker speared him after Cedric tried to do his handspring move up against the ropes. Bron Breakker took him out with a spear, won in like 20 seconds. Another guy who should not have had his music changed. There was nothing wrong with Bron Breakker's old music. Then we had a Tiffany Stratton video package, and she asked Nick Aldis where her title match was, and Nick Aldis revealed that Tiffany would be facing Naomi, with the winner getting a title match at Backlash. And Bayley revealed that it was her idea for the match. Shout out to Walter Cruz. Thank you for that. Walter sent in $5. I appreciate it. Says, I missed the computer picking the drafts, and we get the cycle of all the pictures. This draft was boring. Most just stayed on the same brand. Hope Raw's better. It's funny you mentioned that, Walter, because on Twitter and X, I saw a bunch of comments where people said they hated that format and they much prefer this format. So I guess it's just a matter of personal taste, but I'll talk more about my overall thoughts on the draft here in just a couple moments. Let's continue on here. We had Michelle McCool presenting for SmackDown and Tori Wilson presenting for Raw. Very random appearances here. And we found out for the second round that Randy Orton has been drafted to SmackDown. Bron Breakker has been drafted to Raw. SmackDown lost Bron Breakker. Nia Jax has been drafted to SmackDown, and Liv Morgan has been drafted to Raw. So I guess we had a couple switches here. Bron Breakker to Raw, though we barely was on SmackDown. And Liv Morgan staying on Raw, whatever. Nia Jax going to SmackDown. I guess that gives Bayley a fresh opponent. I mean, that pick makes sense just to change things up for Nia Jax and gives Bayley a new person to feud with. Paul Heyman was backstage, and he was there for the arrival of Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. Now, Heyman did not hold the door open for Solo, and Heyman apologized and said he'll do it next time. And Solo was very unhappy. Solo wanted to know where they were drafted, and Heyman explained that Roman Reigns withdrew from the draft, and that, like, I guess, devalued the bloodline as far as the Raw and SmackDown boards go. And, you know, they did the thing that they've done in other years where you have the boardrooms or the war rooms, whatever you want to call them. And you had a bunch of random officials in each room. It's kind of goofy. Like, if they actually took the brand split seriously throughout the year and had some different people on TV running the show, like, it would be more believable. But when they just throw a bunch of people randomly to represent Raw and SmackDown, like, it just doesn't really make any sense or have any impact. Now, Solo told Heyman to repeat what he just said, but then before Heyman could say anything, we had Kevin Owens jump them, and officials had to break things up. Bianca Belair came out for an interview, and she talked about the tag team title match they have coming up against Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair teaming up to challenge the Kabuki Warriors at Backlash. She talked about the tag match, said that Damage Control is falling apart, and the final piece of finishing them off is taking those women's tag team titles. The Kabuki Warriors arrived, and then after they had a face-off, we had Kevin Owens and Tama Tonga brawl into the ringside area, and Solo Sikoa was beating down Owens. It was 2-on-1 again. Security was beat up, and Randy Orton finally came out there to make the save. And they did confirm later that it will be the Bloodline versus Owens and Orton at Backlash, and also the tag match for the women's tag team titles, as I just mentioned. Next up, we had Naomi going up against Tiffany Stratton with the winner challenging Bayley for the women's title, the WWE women's title at Backlash. Naomi had the early momentum and she was pretty much dominating the match. Then Naomi was distracted because guess who showed up? Nia Jax. Nia Jax attacked Bayley at ringside. Bayley was on commentary, and then Naomi tried to go after Nia Jax, got attacked. Nia threw Naomi into the ring post, and that caused the disqualification. And then Tiffany took out both Bayley and Naomi once again with the prettiest moonsault ever. So that led to the announcement that there will be a triple threat match at Backlash. Bayley versus both Tiffany and Naomi. So look, Bayley was doing the right thing, suggesting this match to see who faces her. She didn't interfere. She got attacked by Nia Jax, and now she has to face two people instead of one. How is that fair? I think Virtue might even agree with me that that is definitely not fair. Anyways, this was dumb. Shout out to good old JM Jeff Meacham with a little bit of a Star Wars reference. I know that much. I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I think he's talking in Yoda voice, if I'm not mistaken, and says at least the head of WWE isn't the laughing stock of multiple media outlets, making reference to Tony Khan in a neck brace, talking about how WWE is the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling. Oh, poor Tony Khan. He starts to give fans a little bit of hope after AEW Dynasty, and then he goes and acts like a goofball once again. But we're not going to talk about Tony Khan tonight. This is about SmackDown. Thank you, though, Jeff, for the super chat. And I guess happy early Star Wars Day to you. James sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, James. Says, this format makes more sense if you follow the NFL draft. WWE is very much trying to emulate the real sports feel with the war rooms and advisors. They were doing this years ago, though. I remember they had the Fox representatives and the USA Network representatives one year. I guess because I don't follow sports that I can't understand it, but it just felt so uneventful. Maybe because there weren't that many actual switches or real surprises. Felt kind of lackluster to me, and we're not done yet. We had the Street Profits backstage. There was a little confrontation between them, Theory and Waller, to set up next week. Bobby Lashley had to cool things down between the two sides. So there's going to be the tag team title match next week, not at Backlash, but on the SmackDown show. We then had the Final Testament. They're still a thing. They attacked Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate backstage and said that regardless of whether they're on Raw or SmackDown, they're going to keep attacking until they get what they want. Okay, then. We had our fourth and final round. Did I do the third round? I'm not even sure if I did the third round now. I may have missed the third round, so I'm going to have to go back and check. Let me see. Oh, I did miss the third round. Okay, so let's do the third round real quick. Okay, so the third round, we had Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon Dudley as the presenters. For opposite brands, I guess they decided to go against each other or represent different sides. The crowd chanted ECW. There was a chant for We Want Tables. And yeah, it was kind of cool that they got that acknowledgement. LA Knight has been drafted to SmackDown, which is weird to me I feel like LA Knight could have really benefited from a switch. But as Matthew pointed out, maybe we're going to get LA Knight versus Logan Paul. And that's why LA Knight is staying on SmackDown. So I guess that would make sense in that case. Ricochet has been drafted to Raw. So no switch there. And then Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Paul Heyman have been drafted to SmackDown. This surprised me because we have the move to Netflix in January, and I feel like the Bloodline would be on that show. Now, obviously, SmackDown is on Fox until October, so maybe the attitude is, well, by the time we get to WrestleMania season, which is around the time of the Netflix move, that's the time that we just stop caring about the draft and people appear on both shows. So, whatever. We're going to keep the Bloodline on for the remainder of the Fox deal. Don't really know what other reasoning there is behind it other than that. And then finally, Sheamus has been drafted to Raw. Again, no surprise. He returned on Raw. So why would they switch him? Like if he was going to be on SmackDown, he would have returned on SmackDown, right? Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat, says, think Aldis might regret drafting the Bloodline. Well, even though Roman Reigns is gone for the time being, he still sees value in the group, knowing that they are needle movers and controversy creates cash, as Eric Bischoff might say. You got Solo Sikoa and Tonga raising hell, and that moves numbers. That gets people watching the shows. All right, moving on here. The fourth and final round of the draft. Teddy Long and JBL did the presentations. Teddy Long for SmackDown and JBL for Raw. AJ Styles has been drafted to SmackDown. No move. Alpha Academy has been drafted to Raw. No move. Which, again, Alpha Academy makes sense because Chad Gable is feuding with Sami Zayn. AJ Styles is feuding with Cody Rhodes, so why move him? Andrade has been drafted to SmackDown, I guess, to keep him with Rey Mysterio, unless Rey Mysterio gets drafted to Raw, and that very well could be the case on Monday. And then the final draft pick for the evening was Kiana James going to Monday Night Raw, which I thought was an odd choice. That was the one real surprise, and they made a big deal out of it. Like out of 100 people from NXT, she was one of the only people selected to be called up. And Shawn Michaels gave her a hug at the Performance Center, and she cut a little promo. I have to say, nothing about her stood out for me the times I've seen her wrestle, which, to be fair, haven't been that many, but she's been on a few of the premium live events, and she didn't stand out to me. So we'll see what happens with her, if she can make a name for herself, or is she going to be one of those call-ups that is pushed for like 2 weeks and then quickly forgotten about? I don't know. Shout out to Lucy Club Studios, who sent in a $2 super chat, says, did you hear about Dominic Mysterio? Yeah, his arm was in a sling, and he went on Twitter and X and said that he does not need surgery. Other than that, I haven't heard anything else about him. We had our final match of the evening, Cody versus Carmelo Hayes. It was a good match, but they didn't have a lot of time, so it was a fairly standard TV main event. I will say Carmelo took a couple of great bumps in this match. he did like this 360 flip when Cody hit him with the disaster kick. Cody busted out the Cody cutter. Carmelo kicked out of that. And then Carmelo was going for like his own move, a springboard move, like a crossbody, while Cody was going for a cutter. I'm not sure what they were going for here, but they both missed. And Cody landed badly on his shoulder. And hopefully he's okay. And that was just overselling on his part. But yeah, it looked very awkward. And Cody did get the win with Crossroads. It was solid. After the match, Cody had some words with Carmelo. And Carmelo left the ring. But then AJ Styles showed up and had a little bit of a face-off with Styles. And it seemed like the crowd was buzzing a little bit, so I guess that's a positive. But, yeah, I'm still not feeling the match. And all in all, I thought this was a pretty lackluster draft show. This was one of those episodes of SmackDown where I think you could have skipped it and not missed much. The draft really didn't have much of an impact, at least for the first night. Now, Raw, we obviously have a lot more picks because it's a 3-hour show, and we may get some more notable moves. But for this show, it felt lackluster to me. And the moves that were made, I guess they were fine, but not really that intriguing. And that was SmackDown. I give the show a C. I think it was okay, but far from my favorite. And yeah, I'm not feeling a whole lot of buzz coming out of it. Now, shout out to Teaching in Color X, who sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, not trying to be rude, but remember back in the day you thought WWE production was too perfect. Now, are you a fan of it? When AEW's production messed up, I feel like it's a bigger deal in your eyes. Why so? I think there's a difference between purposely making the production look a little imperfect and actually not having good production. They're two different things. And WWE has always been really good with the production, but my whole point when I said the WWE production was too perfect is that sometimes it looks too choreographed and it's a little bit too smooth. But when you can make it look more realistic, like if you want to shake the camera a little bit in a situation where it calls for it to make it look like this wasn't part of the plan, that makes sense. But when you have like bad audio that is just bad audio and it's not done for any actual purposeful effect, then that's not good. It's amateur hour. So there's definitely a difference between the two. I hope that answered your question. And James sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, thoughts on Nick Khan selling all of his TKO shares? Well, keep in mind that it's not finalized. So the shares are up for sale, but nothing is final at this point. I'll comment on it once an actual sale goes through. But for now, Nick Khan is still president of WWE. And I'm more interested in Vince potentially being 100% out of the company. But again, nothing's finalized with these shares. They're up for sale, but they're not actually sold yet. We'll talk more about that probably on the No DQ review. I would be shocked if Nick Khan left his role in WWE stuff, and he's got a good relationship with The Rock and Triple H and all that. So we'll see what happens, but I'll comment on it more if and when those shares are actually sold. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. I was not a big fan of night one. I hope night two is a bit more productive and they actually shake things up a little bit. We'll see what they come up with on Monday. But yeah, this wasn't a great show, in my opinion. Take it easy, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for the No DQ review. Shout out to Walter Cruz, who sent in a $5 super chat, says, WWE should do the draft after Mania before booking any future plans. Actually make it random, then write stories based on who is drafted. Really random. I almost prefer that more, like doing it random. But again, some people don't like that format and don't like where you have all the names on the screen and people don't know where they're going. But it does make it a little bit more interesting than this. And then when they do it this method, then we're always questioning, well, why did they pick this person over this person? Why was this person in the third round? And a lot of times it just doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense. So I definitely see both sides of the argument, like doing it randomly as opposed to having them make their actual picks. So anyways, guys, we'll talk more about this on Sunday night on the No DQ review. Take it easy, everybody. Buy a shirt, nodq.com/merch, and I will see you all next time.